What is inflation? Inflation is the tax on the poor. And what we're seeing right now is that inflation is rising, and significantly, both core inflation and headline inflation, both in the Eurozone and in the United States. We have seen this in the past. In the last years in which we heard that there was absolutely no inflation, we saw that the core goods and services, the non-replicable goods, the essential goods and services that we all purchase on a day-to-day basis were rising much faster than the headline CPI, Consumer Price Index. And we also saw that all of this happened while there were massive liquidity injections in the economy. What we're seeing right now is both the base effect from the reopening of the economy and the debasement of fiat currencies all around the world that are showing in, for example, fresh food prices, the impact of the loss of purchasing power. And that is very evident in emerging economies, but it's also very evident in developed economies, as we have seen in a country like Germany, where they always say that there is no inflation. In the first month of the year, fresh food up 3%, and we saw, for example, that the services of public services, went up by 6%. I think that's very important. Why? Because central banks are not going to stop their liquidity injections when they see inflation rising. Why? Because if they did, a lot of sovereign nations, a lot of sovereign issuers would find themselves in a big debt crisis, because they are accustomed, they are used to very high liquidity injections, big repurchases from central banks, and very low rates. As such, central banks cannot stop their expansionary policies, and at the same time, inflation is rising, leading consumers to perceive a weakening of the purchasing power and a weakening of their ability to save a little bit for the future. With that combination, what we cannot expect is a big rise in consumption in the second part of the year, because consumers feel the pinch of real inflation, while central banks will continue to inject liquidity, and governments will continue to say that the inflation remains weak, the official one. And we see that healthcare, education, and fresh food, rent, etc. rise significantly above CPI and real wages. Those effects are very important, because what we are likely to see is a rising discontent, rising inequality, but also, very important, is that massive wave of consumption that people are expecting is very unlikely to happen as long as this continues.